Cabinet tonight. Littering and fly tipping blights our town and are at unacceptably high levels. It's a key aim of this administration to tidy up our town, and this report forms an important part of our approach to that challenge. It is right, given how much Harlow taxpayers spend on trying to keep our streets clean, that we do seek to enforce the laws on this, including by issuing fines for those who act with so little regard for the town and communities in which they and we all live, and the environmental harm that so much littering can cause. I therefore hope Cabinet and the Opposition will join in supporting this report and its proposal to tender for additional enforcement capacity from next year, so that we can continue to fight to tidy up Harlow and restore pride in our town. However, I must address a problem that I've been grappling with since day one in this role, and where I believe this report charts up a better way forward. As fellow councillors will be aware, since last summer, under the previous administration, a company called NES was contracted on a trial basis to supplement the council's own limited resources to tackle growing levels of littering. And in many ways, this approach has worked, but it has, I believe, become quite clear that under the current arrangements, we have seen some Harlow residents unfairly targeted in some instances. Several cases I've heard of, whilst in line with the law and what the council had agreed with NES, were clearly disproportionate. One case from my own ward, Staple Ties, sticks with me, of a single mother with no record of previous littering offences, fined £200 for a minor and entirely inadvertent offence. And I know other councillors have had some similar cases, indeed some brought them to my attention, for which I'm grateful. This approach has done nothing to help that down. Genuine littering, organised fly tipping, or where necessary, help to educate people about the impact their actions might have on the cleanliness of our town and in keeping our estates tidy. And worse, these types of fines have undermined confidence in the council's enforcement approach when we need to build support for a litter-free Harlow. And I know the frustration about this is felt on both sides, and every councillor, as I say, sitting in this chamber today will have come across similar cases in their own ward. And again, thank you for raising it with me. From day one in this role, I felt it was unacceptable that under the arrangements we inherited, this council was targeting our residents in their homes and in effect treating them worse than the criminal fly tippers in those businesses, clogging up our grass verges with A-boards and estate agent signs, fixing into whatever they can. This report charts a better way forward by proposing a modified specification of the enforcement contract, keeping our ability to enforce fines for real littering, but moving the focus away from catching out well-meaning residents and towards those dumping rubbish around our town. And I'm pleased to confirm my excellent team of officers have secured an agreement with NES that will see them change their approach as of now to reflect this, bringing an immediate end to the disproportionate and counterproductive fines that were being imposed on Harlow residents. I must end my comments by paying tribute to the Harlow Wombles and their efforts to try and turn the tide. I had the pleasure of meeting up with several of them on Monday, alongside HDS, who kindly donated several litter pickers to the group recently. And also to thank fellow councillors who engaged in litter picking in their spare time. For example, for the Harlow Spring Clean, I do follow your Twitter exploits, council visits with admiration and inspiration. We all want to see a cleaner Harlow, and so I thank all of those inside this chamber and out who are working to help us achieve that. I welcome this report and hope that it will receive support. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm looking for a second, I believe Councillor Hardware is a second. Okay, so can I take questions, please? I will go to Councillor Vince, then Councillor Davis, and Councillor Michael in that order. Councillor Vince.
Thank you, Chair. Probably guessed I was going to ask questions on this one, and I welcome the report, and I take a lot of the things you said. I mean, first question, point 12, page 42, is about body cameras being worn. I'm assuming they weren't worn in the pilot study. This is a new idea, is it, Councillor?
Councillor
I don't believe they work. I'm not 100% sure, so I will seek to double check on that point if that's okay.
You have further questions?
Yeah, so I've got 5, but they're pretty quick ones like that.
Let's see.
Yeah, point 13, seats going permission with the private provider. Is this intended to continue, or are we hoping that there'll be there'll be sort of be more money going to the council.
Sorry, can you put that again?
In the pilot study, the receipts are going to the private provider as part of the agreement. What's the kind of agreement moving forward in terms of where the money from the fines is going to go?
Councillor, would you like me to take that? What's something you have to say?
No, I'm happy to take that. That is addressed elsewhere in the report. But it is something that would be explored. The pilot was with all costs borne by NES and no revenue to come to the council. That was what was agreed back in, well, it only came into effect in August 2020. That's something that is addressed elsewhere in the report.
Yeah, again, apologies, this is covered. I did try and read the report, but I may have missed that bit, so apologies for that. You mentioned it briefly in your initial statement. I had a similar story to yours. A young gentleman who actually had no difficulty in his care was telling him to pick up a litter and he didn't. And so that's obviously not good at all. What has been put in place to ensure there isn't sort of overzealous officers, and is pay for officers performance related, or are they on fixed salary?
As the report extends to the pilot, there's been no performance-related pay salaried, and that's an approach that I believe we'd be looking to carry forward. So actually, we're looking to go out to tender from March next year, and nothing has been signed off. But I would be wary of going down that road. There are opportunities to challenge inappropriate fines, but if there are vulnerable residents being targeted, that's clearly something where we would want to have a good relationship with whoever gets this contract to be able to introduce compassion and sensitivity to difficult cases. And to their credit, NES have begun, to my mind, to show that approach.
Last one, so really quick. So concern was just about how the council monitors this going forward, and can you clarify what you foresee monitoring? So it does mention monitoring moving forward, but I just wondered if you could give us a bit more detail in terms of what this looks like moving forward.
Could you clarify what elements of it which elements of monitoring you're on? There's lots one could monitor.
I just want to know, in a 6 month or year period, what you're going to be asking of the company, and what you're going to look at in terms of what is the success for this, this moving forward, really. I mean, it's obviously not success isn't how many people you catch, is it? It's about it's about obviously, well, it's about our talent be better. But I mean, I just wondered, and I'm not saying I've got the answer that the cat have done, so I don't expect to have every answer. Don't worry. But it was just, what do you think? How are you going to measure success, really?
It's a good question. It is one where I think I would welcome any detailed thoughts that the Council of Inns or other opposition councillors or other council members have on this. We do at officer level get pretty detailed information about NES activities. So my understanding is the monitoring is not effective in real time. It is pretty regular. The report does propose to look for an extension of this type of contract for 3 years. So there'll be a 3-year contract, which perhaps to some extent answers when it will be reviewed in that sense. But monitoring, I think, does have to be continuous, and we do get some pretty good data about how they go about that. And just to reiterate and to support what Councillor Vince has said, the aim here is not to go out and make lots of money on the back of Harlow residents. The aim is to clamp down on fly tipping, on littering, and to tidy up Harlow.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. Are you finished with your questions? Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Bob Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome some of the remarks made by Councillor Gunn. I'm not the only one that's been given him hassle, apparently, so that's pretty good. I've written some notes down, so I'd just like to go through them very briefly, Chair. The previous administration introduced this system, as I understand it. I had words, or quite a few words, with the previous portfolio holder when I started receiving complaints from residents and found out there was no appeal procedure. The only way to appeal a fine was to go to a magistrate's court. I don't think we got one in Harlow, so you probably had to go to Chelmsford or somewhere else. The report in section 20 states that residents often do not understand they may be liable, so I think we need to engage that with people and tell them what they're supposed to do and what they can't do.
Councillor Davis, sorry to interrupt you, but on your first note, I suppose is your question, because I'm happy to take comments later on, but is your question, will there be some kind of a process? Should we take that question and then maybe come to your other notes as we go through, so we're getting some sort of question going? Bob, is that okay?
Well, yeah, okay.
Is that a fair point?
Well, I've nearly finished, but never mind.
I'll go on, Karen.
What I'll be asking for is for an appeal process. Can we do that? For example, can the fines be overridden by the portfolio holder if, for example, the councillor provides reasons for doing so? Because I'm concerned that there's no appeal procedure. So that's basically what I was after, Chair.
On the point on the appeal procedure, it's certainly something that I'd be happy to see explored. On the specific point around can a particular portfolio holder override a particular fine, for example, I think I'd feel more comfortable in consulting with the legal officer over delegated powers and coming back at a future time with a more definitive answer on that, if I may, Councillor Davis. But I certainly take the point on board.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
I'm going to move to Councillor Garnett, if I may.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this report actually, because it seems to take a softening of the line that's been going on. Councillor Gallagher knows I've been on to about 3 or 4 cases in Old Harlow, which I find were completely unjustified and completely disproportionate to what's going on. So my question really is about, is there any, because the fine is £200, so if you leave a plastic bag of rubbish outside your front garden, you get fined £200. I just find it's, with the, the vulnerable people here, the people who are struggling, they can't afford it. Thankfully, the 3 of the 4 I got, the NES decided to rescind it in the end when they heard the evidence. But I think also the wardens were being a bit brusque about it. They were taking photos. You talked about they actually had a camera, I understand. And at least on one occasion, I believe that the warden was lying the way it came about. The story he was telling as to why he went to the knock on this door. So anyway, having said that, is there any way we can mitigate that £200 fine to be more realistic to what's going on?
Are you content to answer that question?
I'm entirely content, Chair, if you're happy. First of all, I've got to say thank you to both councillors, Garnett and Davis, who have been assiduous in supporting their residents in both cases, and I'm delighted, Mike, to know that you've had some success with those. And I think with Councillor Davis, we've had a recent softening as well on a particular case, so I'm confirmed. Yes, one of the problems is that the cases you've been referring to is precisely what the report seeks to address, of people being fined for leaving very close to their property and not in any intention to litter or fly tip. Do get a £200 fine for fly tipping, where there are lesser fines for littering, so they are effectively being treated worse under the old system than people who, let's say, discarded drinks container in the town centre, for example. We have, and I pay credit to the team of officers who've been working on this for achieving this, but also to NES, we have seen them adapt and understand what this new administration is after, and I think that's reflected in the successes that you've had. Clearly, with any enforcement like this, having photographic evidence is going to be a part of the job, so I think that's probably something that one has to welcome, broadly speaking.
Chairman, can I just say one more thing, which you said at the time? There are litter pickers around the town. Councillor Charles and I have been doing it for over 3 years in Old Harlow and Churchgate Street, all around that area. So we've not got the publicity that 1 or 2 of the other groups have got, because they've started it much later. Hopefully we were at the beginning of sorting it out, so it's good. And there's quite a number actually of people in Old Harlow now that do go up and down the riverbanks, etc. So thank you, Chair, for letting me say that.
Well, thank you, Councillor Garnett. You almost gracefully actually took us into comments, but I'm cognizant that Councillor Harvey may have a question. If there's a question, Councillor Harvey, I'll entertain it. If it's a comment, I'd just like to double check that there aren't any more questions before I move on. Councillor Harvey.
I shall do my best to entertain you, Councillor Perrin. So my question, I guess, has a kind of dimension of a comment to it as well. I was really surprised to see over 4,000, I think, fines for discarding cigarette butts. And, you know, not being a smoker, perhaps it's not surprising that I don't know this, but would people really know that you could be fined for discarding a cigarette butt? I mean, I suppose if you're a smoker, you do, but I certainly was surprised by that. And it just struck me that probably we could do with some communications around what are prohibited behaviours. Again, forgive me if people do know this, and I'm just a bit naive, but I think a communications campaign is quite an important dimension to this. And I suppose my question is, as we move into phase 2 of the programme, is that something that you're considering? And can I follow up after this question?
Of course, Councillor.
Thank you. And this actually speaks to the point that Councillor Davis made that I wanted to come back to as well about education. And I refer you to recommendation C on the first page of the report, that the Council will engage in communications measures to enhance the effect of enforcement. So this is a central part of the work that we have to do, is to educate people. I should say, if you're on the Harlow moaning page on Facebook, you'll be well aware that people did issue fines for cigarettes, and I'm an ex-smoker, so perhaps have a better insight into some of the challenges around this, but I think it's the biggest source of plastic pollution in the oceans, frankly anywhere, are cigarette butts. We don't think it was plastic, but that's we've got all sorts in them. So yes, education is key. And to reiterate what I said to Councillor Vince, agreeing with Councillor Vince earlier, the aim here is not to issue lots and lots of fines and make lots of money. It is to get Harlow tidy and tackling cigarette butts. It's the biggest form of littering that we face.
May I follow up with a question?
Yes, please.
Thanks. I value my mental health far too much to be on Harlow moaning page. But I admire anybody who has the strength for it. I wanted to say, perhaps this is a comment, but I will make it a question. I wanted to say how much I enjoyed the tenor of the discussion we just had and how productive it was, and I think this is a really positive thing, for want of a better word. And I just wanted to say that what hasn't worked optimally, I think we're all in agreement, was a pilot, and we're going to learn from that. So I just wanted to, I suppose, just suggest that we don't couch this in terms of a flawed system that was inherited, but rather a learning process that I think we all share a lot of views on, and will actually really strengthen the town going forward. So I don't think that's a question. I could say, do you agree with that, to make it such? Perhaps in truth it's more of a comment.
Well, do you agree?
Well, I found the situation as it is, and I'd like to think we're improving the situation, but I certainly welcome support for these measures, just what I'm hearing today, so thank you very much for that.
Okay, so
Sorry, one more question. There
we
is a
seem
question.
to be fleeing between question and comment. We're going to have to become a little more disciplined. So question, fine, then we'll move to comment. So question, please.
I can do it in either way, but it's just to say, it occurred to me that the revenue we generate from the fines, I believe it's 50% is coming from the, no, going forward, we're going to do it, I thought we were doing this split, the 50% on in the next, I did think that the council was going to earn some income from the system going forward. That was what my understanding was from Andrew when he spoke to me about it. If I'm wrong, this is a silly suggestion. My thought was that if that is the case, might we do something like use that money, designate that money towards something positive for the town, so we could have some kind of, use that to represent the value that we're able to generate from this process and create something positive and circular.
So as Councillor Gunn has outlined already, there is going to be a tender process. Well, there is a tender process underway. Part of that tender process will be looking at any potential income this council may derive from it. And I'd like to finish by saying all things this council do are of benefit to this town, and I think I'll leave that where I may. Are there any further questions? Okay, let's go to comments. Any comments from councillors? Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I think I may have to declare a peculiar interest because I have in fact been issued with an FPN for dropping this on private property, which came as something of a surprise until the was pointed out that the Environment Protection Act actually refers to open spaces regardless of ownership. Which brings me nicely on to my main point, in that most of these FPNs are contrary to Section 87 or whatever of the Environment Protection Act, and therefore they are legal fines, and the council has no ability whatsoever to vary them. Clearly, what we need to do is to press down on, I won't say sort of compassion, but a bit more understanding of actual circumstances, rather than having people standing around Tesco's car park waiting for people to drop cigarette ends, which is what they do.
Any further comments? We'll go to Councillor Vince and Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, David agreed with Councillor Carr there. I mean, yeah, ultimately we agree. I think as part of this issue, flooding and picking is a huge issue. I mean, I'm not going to who started lip picking first, but I mean, you know, if we want to make a competition out of it, that can only be good for Harlow, can't it? To be honest, do you know what I mean? So I think that's a great thing. You know, ultimately this is a pilot scheme, and it is as such it does need ironing out. And I think that it's good that we are all in agreement in terms of how we actually iron that out. And as Councillor Gunn says, Councillor Davis on our side, and Councillor Carson on your side have been very proactive in this respect, so that's brilliant. I think there is a need for appeals process, which Councillor Davis has touched upon, and just to finish, really to agree again with Councillor Carr, I think it's just about a need for human touch, isn't it, on this, and I've not felt full foul of this yet, but I do know people who have, it's communication first, isn't it? Give them warning first, but ultimately, this is a big issue that we do need to tackle, and I think it's like I once told a kid off for ripping a bit of my wall display, and he said, "Oh, it's just a bit of wall display. Why does it matter?" I'm talking about transparent, because the minute you damage something, even that little bit, it's enough for people to not care about it anymore. And there's a phrase, and I can't remember what the phrase is, but it's broken window syndrome. Is that it? Thank you. So actually, it's something that may seem small to a lot of people, but does make a big difference to our community. So I welcome this report as I just do.
I've never told a child before. Councillor Edwards.
Just picking up on the point that Councillor Harvey was making, I think it's about, I too welcome the report. I think it's about turning it all into a virtuous circle, isn't it? So there's the work that's going on, the very good work that one was doing. There's the work that this will be doing in terms of saying to people, look, if you do drop litter, etc., there's the possibility that you'll be fined over it. But there's also the other bit of it is about celebrating when as things improve. It's about celebrating those improvements and pointing out that this is what the area looked like once, this is what the area is looking like now. And I think the point that Councillor Harvey was making to see whether or not, if there is some income generated for this, if it can be in some way seen to be going back into the same area and creating that virtuous circle. I think that would be helpful. But all I would say is well done in terms of the people that have been involved in this report. Well done to them, and I look forward to seeing over the next couple of years this policy rolling forward.
Any further comments? We've got Councillor Leppard and Councillor David Carter. So we've got Councillor Leppard.
Just one observation on the fine levels. I noticed that cigarettes, dropping a cigarette butt is £80.
Sorry, Jay, put a mic on.
Sorry. I noticed that the dropping of a cigarette raises a fine of £80, whereas dog fouling is 50.
Well, I think that's probably should be reversed the other way around.
Yeah.
And if anyone thinks otherwise, I would just ask any council, what should you prefer to tread on? Thank you.
Councillor David Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome this report as well. I'm a huge fan of litter picking. One of the problems I have with litter picking is that I do go out on Sundays, litter picking, and I often get approached by adults with children. And the adult wants to help, and the children do. And I'm terrified of the children wanting to help, because with the state that we're in at the moment, with children picking up anything from broken glass to needles, etc., I don't want them to do this, but at the same time, I want to encourage them to be good citizens, not drop litter, and help. How can we actually, or can we put in some sort of provision that children can help in a safe way? Thank you.
Before I don't see anyone else indicating, so before I sum up, I'm going to ask Councillor Dunn if there's anything further he wishes to say before I do so.
Really to thank councillors for their very helpful contributions and comments, some of which I think will be good for us, for officers and voting holders to reflect on and see if we can inform this going forward. But very pleased with the response.
Okay. Well, I too have found this a very interesting debate, and I also agree. I welcome the tenure today. It's been quite refreshing. I agree with the idea of the appeals process. I like that idea. I think that's a good point. I also agree with Councillor Dunn. We're dealing with what we find, and hearing some of the stories that all councillors have heard about fines being issued in an unfeeling or uncaring or just illogical way needs to be addressed, and I'm glad we're taking steps to address that. So that's absolutely fantastic, and this is one of those few examples where I said we're quite happy, we're working constructively with the opposition, because when there are good ideas, we're taking them forward. And I know many people are very keen on litter picking. I'm also keen that there's a preventative element to this, because actually, why should anyone have to pick up somebody else's litter? And this is a very expensive process, but what this does do is tips the balance back against the people that do these kinds of horrible acts against our society and where we live. And I like the emphasis being placed upon the criminal element, the fly tippers, the people that really, really take advantage of our society and our environment, and can cause great damage to our environment, because waste not dealt with properly is a major harm. I feel sorry for Councillor Carter, Simon Carter, for having been fined on private property. It's disgraceful. That said, I applaud Mrs. Carter for her very wonderful and very innovative efforts to prize money from his wallet. So, well done to Mrs. Carter for that. All that said, I'm going to move to the vote on the recommendations. You give me a kick afterwards. Okay, one page number, page 20. So, page 4. So, move to the vote that Cabinet recommends, and I'll take items A through to C on block. All those in favour?